Gabrielle and this is my husband Philip. We want to share our story of how we moved to the countryside because there was a lot of things that we needed to learn in a short space of time. So we're going to share with you what we learned. It all started with Boris, didn't it?
It did.
So in January 2020, I think Boris made an announcement that the country is going into lockdown.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households. That is why people will only be allowed to leave their homes for the following very limited purposes.
We will be standing up Christmas Island as a quarantine area.
Foreign nationals coming from China are now banned from entering the country.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
Trying to contain a city of 11 million people is new to science. It has not been tried before as a public health measure.
The death toll now has risen above that of the SARS outbreak 17 years ago.
We now have a name for the disease, COVID-19.
I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody.
The Italian government tonight put the entire country on lockdown.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
We will be suspending all travel from Europe.
From Italy this evening, it just gets worse. The death toll now worse than China.
Asking everyone to work at home if possible, postpone unnecessary travel.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में
So together, and with the rest of the world, we face this unprecedented challenge. For many, young and old, 2020 will be the toughest year of our lives.
And I think immediately we started to question, is this it? Is this a sign that, something's about to happen? Because the lockdown happened so quickly. Both Philip and I were essential workers, so we could go out, but a lot of our neighbours couldn't go out, and then there was lots of reports about people's neighbours reporting them for having family at their house, and we thought, this really is a time that we need to contemplate what we need to do here. And I remember Trevor preaching at our church, and he really preached a profound message. And I think the journey plan of story began with Trevor's sermon. Because I asked Trevor, would you be willing to share that? Because it's so important that people know the times in which we live. And Trevor spoke about the book Country Living. I mean, I'd never read it before, but it's a book that we had in our home. And I think you read it, didn't you?
Yeah, I've read it previously, put it down, forgot about what was in it. And only since lockdown, I decided to read it again.
Yeah, so during lockdown, every Sabbath afternoon, we read a bit of this book. And I think by the time we finished the book, we were kind of taken back. We knew that God had spoken and we needed to do something. So I think we shared with our family, and they said, well, they're not in a position to move, and we've got adult children. Our son was just going off to university at the time. So we weren't really worried about him, because wherever we go, there's always a place for him. But our older children, they had their jobs, they had their children, their families, and they weren't in a position to move. And it was almost like God said to us, we need to go. Because even if, this is my opinion, even if the coming of the Lord is not in our lifetime, and I believe it will be, we've got somewhere prepared for our children. So it's almost like God told us this is what we needed to do. So almost immediately after we read that book, we started preparing our house to go on the market. Do you want to say?
Yeah, we started preparing our home early in the year 2020. I can't remember which month specifically, but we got it ready basically for sale. We put it on the market in September 2020. We're trying to get it on earlier because the best time to put a house on for sale is during the summer months when more people will be looking to buy a new home. Well, that wasn't possible. So we actually got it on in September 2020 and the property sold in June 2021.
And the reason we couldn't get it on the market earlier was because the COVID restrictions. So the shops were closed, so we had to order paints and whatever from B&Q and collect it at a certain day. And so we were restricted. It wasn't like we could go to the shop and get some paint and get brushes, and we had to do everything in slow motion because it wasn't available to us at that time. But in any case, we got the house on the market, and I really have to say, by the grace of God. And I think we were walking by faith, because at that time, I remember thinking, well, what are we doing? But, it was clear that God had spoken to us and we needed to take action. So the house, before the house sold, we actually put an offer on a house in Wales. But that fell through because our house was taking too long to sell, and the lady needed to sell and move on. And during that time, the house prices were going up. The house prices in the country were going up, and there were less and less properties available for us to buy. So in any case, we sold the house and we rented for a little while. For 8 months, we rented a property, and we continued looking. We found nothing. The prices were just out of this world prices for countryside anyhow. And I remember coming up to visit a house, and it really was not in good condition. And the man that was showing us around the property, he said, "Would you really pay that much for this house?" And I said, "Well, that's kind of the going rate at the moment." He said, "A year ago, this house would have been a fraction of the price that it's on the market for." So we knew we were going to pay
top dollar.
Yeah.
That actual house was on the market for $315,000, and the gentleman told Gabrielle that last year it was on the market prior to COVID for £100,000. So in the space of a year, that price of that house had tripled, and that's the kind of things we were dealing with, because in that year there was an article in one of the newspapers where it said that 74,000 people had moved to the country. So it was competitive. People knew that houses in the country were selling, and therefore they could bump up their prices as high as they wanted to, knowing that somebody will buy it simply because they want to get out of the country.
We rented the property for 8 months, and we really need to thank God. It was actually the person who bought our home, previous home, who is a landlord, and he allowed us to rent this property from him. And so, because we had some few challenges, getting the house emptied before we moved out, but Michael was really helpful in that he said, we had gone over by a week, but he said, no problem. So we got the house emptied. We continued looking for other properties. We were looking all over the place. We were looking, we predominantly thought of Wales, but we also were looking in England. We looked in Hereford, Shropshire, and Cheshire. Yeah, we went up to Cheshire as well. Completely forgot about that. And but we actually, Wales has a special place for us. We wanted to find something in Wales, and we decided if we couldn't find somewhere to buy, initially we would rent. So whilst we were renting, we continued looking also. And whilst we've been renting, it's been a long search, but being in Wales made it a lot easier to go and search for properties and look.
Yeah, because I think we didn't know where we wanted to live, and we just said, God, lead us. I mean, I think this was a real challenging time for us spiritually, because we knew that we were making a big move that's going to impact us, impact our children, our grandchildren, and we didn't know where we were going. It was a little bit like Abraham. Where we going, but we said, God, lead us. So we looked at properties all over the place, but God led us to Wales. And we got to know quite a few people who made that trip to Wales, but a lot of them were in West Wales or North Wales, but for some reason we weren't inspired to go to those places. The Lord led us to Mid Wales, and that's where we found the property. We found a farmhouse that we rented. We're currently renting, and that's where God led us. And I have to say, while we were on the farm, we really learned a lot, because it was a working farm, so we saw the daily activities of the farmer. And we were taking it all in, because we knew that one day we would have our own property. But the waiting time was challenging, because since we were married, we've never rented a property. And we were seeing our monies go into rent when we know that we wanted to buy our own place. So we really spent some serious time in prayer, in fasting, saying, God, did you lead us here? But I think really we had no doubt that we were led by God. And I remember one of the first nights we were moving our things from Luton to Wales. It was late in the night. I think it was like 11 o'clock in the night or something. We were like out in the middle of nowhere. It was just pitch black. And in the city, you're just not used to it. There's light everywhere. Even shops are open at 11 o'clock. It was pitch black, and I remember saying to Phil, are we doing the right thing here? I feel like out of my depth. It was just dark. It was just...
I think one of the challenges was that if you're not used to certain things, and obviously coming from the city we weren't, I remember when I was young, I used to be scared of the dark. And when we got to this place, this farm, where we were going to rent, there was no lights on. It was dark, and then
cold.
You couldn't actually see your hand in front of your face. It was that dark, and it brought back memories of when I was a kid. And then we moved in, and I could hear something in the loft. I didn't sleep that well that night, and I thought, well, I don't really know what we're getting ourselves into, but we're here now. We've signed the rental agreement. We're in the place. But you know what? We got used to the darkness, got used to the quietness, got used to
the noises
in the loft, definitely, and then also really got used to the beauty of the countryside and actually what we were seeing, and really appreciating. I'm not a man who likes snow. I wasn't designed for snow, but even to see the snow on the hills is just amazing. So we saw that and we appreciated it. We appreciated the quietness. Obviously we missed our children and our grandchildren, but just the beauty of the countryside was just amazing. And that's why, Gabrielle started journey planning, not just to inform people, but to let people know that there is something out here. God wants us to live in places which are beautiful, which are, which enhance our spirituality. And I really do think that the countryside does that for people. And it's been a real blessing moving out here and we would encourage everybody to do so as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Safia.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Gabrielle's daughter and this is my husband. When my parents first told us about their move, how did we feel? How did you feel?
I felt a bit disheartened, I would say, definitely, because I knew that I would miss them. And I was a bit confused. I was thinking, well, why would you want to do that? And then they explained why, and then it made sense to me. So then it was then bittersweet. So I was upset for myself, but happy for them. How did you feel?
Yeah, I'd say I was just thinking, oh, why? I didn't really understand it. But yeah, like as she said, they explained it and then you kind of just got on board with it. But I think because they didn't move straight away, I had time to process it, so it didn't really affect me if like they just decided, they sold their house and then they just left. It was like a year or however long till they actually left, so I knew it was coming. It was just about when. So yeah, I think I only really started to feel it when they actually left, but beforehand, yeah, it didn't really. I got used to the idea that they were leaving. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Jemai and I'm Gabrielle and Philip's son.
I'm Aisha and I'm their daughter. I'm the oldest daughter in the family.
And I'm the youngest sibling out of everyone.
Okay, so how did you feel about our parents moving to the country when they first told you?
I thought, why? Like, what's the point of moving? Like, here is nice enough, but that was their choice.
Well, I actually thought it was a good idea, and it's something that I myself thought about doing when I have my own children. I thought that I would move to the country, so it felt like a bit overdue even. I thought it was a good idea.
Can you tell me what it's like to be doing this? Different than a little garden outside of the house in Luton. It's hard work. But you're prepared to do it by the grace of God. So since you come up this side to live, what it feel like? How does the atmosphere feel? How does your lungs feel? How does...
It's definitely a calmer environment, and we give God thanks. I miss my family and friends, but not the city itself.
Okay.
Yeah, but they have opportunities to come up there.
They can come and look for you.
They can help us do some work.
Right. So it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
No regret.
Okay. So when you wake up in the morning and you look out to all this wide green area, how does it make you feel?
I just give God thanks.
Okay.
And we're only here because of the grace of God. We didn't know that one day we would be living like this, but our call came and we responded accordingly. And we give God thanks. We have no regrets.
Well, this is a property that we've bought. It's a 100-year-old basic 2 up, 2 down. The property has an extension put on it, and as you can see, there's a couple of lean-tos. But when we bought the property, we've met a few issues as well. Chimney was leaking, and that's been sorted out now. We've also got this oil tank here, which is only a single skin oil tank. It needs to be a double skinned oil tank to be up to regulation, so we're getting that changed. We've got here on this side a well. We've got to get this water tested. It's not drinkable,
but it can be used for washing cars, anything like that. So we've got to get that sorted out. This section is also a part of the land here, this little area here. And basically we've got these things. When we first came to the property, we had to actually show our interest in the property. This property looked like a scrapyard. I don't know if any of you remember an old British comedy called Steptoe & Son, where you had the rag and bone man. Well, this is what this property looked like. We had tractors over here, one tractor over here. We had horse mess all over the place. It was just a real ugly place to look at, to tell the truth. But one of the things we was told by the actual seller of the property, that we were the 14th person or couple to come and have a look at the property, and we were the only ones to put in an offer. And we could understand why people didn't put it in, because to look at it, you think, wow, it's a bit of a mess. There's a lot of work to do. And we were the only ones who came from Wales as well. Everybody else came from England. People came from Kent and London, all different parts of the country to view this property, but weren't interested in buying. We actually saw some potential within it when we saw the property, and we put in an offer the day we met the seller. We put in an offer. He said he'd speak to his, because he was on the probate, he said he'd speak to his lawyer, solicitor, and he did so. And a couple of days later, the offer was accepted.
The day we got the keys, I went to the estate agent to pick it up, and the following day we came here and we just prayed, because we know that this didn't happen because of anything we did, but by the grace of God. We really, the price we bought it for, the land we've got, all the blessings here, we know it came from God, because we tried in our own strength for 4 years. Nothing, but we had to wait for God, and this is what He provided for us, and we're truly grateful, and we know it came from the hand of God. So when we came here, went through the doors, walked around, we just prayed and thanked God for what He did for us.
Yeah, and as I said before, the place was in a real mess, and I didn't think the previous owners were going to clear it up. I thought there was too much to clear, but they actually did quite a good job. I mean, it's not it doesn't look brilliant with all these outbuildings. They're pretty grubby, but the mess around the place is just, everything's just scattered, rubbish, all kinds of stuff. But they cleaned it up. My job now is to basically make this look a lot better than it actually is. One of the blessings is we're coming from a house where we had a 100-foot garden. Now 4.7 acres of land. that's it. And sometimes it's just a case now of okay, we had a 100-foot garden. We knew what we could do with that, but we've got some plans to do things like where you see the static caravan here. That piece of land, we're going to 2 polytunnels just at the side of the static caravan. We could put 2 polytunnels there, grow some food. We've said to the people in different Pathfinder groups, there's a section of land here. You can walk down to it. This is the biggest area of land where people will be able to put up their tents, enjoy time in nature. I mean, the scenery is beautiful. As you can see, it's captivating. It's a lovely part of Wales. It's actually one of the most beautiful areas I've seen in Wales. I mean, we looked at another house previous to this. I'd say this area is not as pretty, but it's still amazingly beautiful. And you know, we are just so happy to be here. But we know that this blessing which God has bestowed upon us is not just for us. It's, you know, we want to be a blessing, we want to lift up the name of the Lord, but we also want to benefit the community and benefit the church, benefit family. So anybody who comes here, you know, we've got a static caravan over there, and we want to get that fixed up so people can come and stay. We just want to make this land be used for the glory of God.
Okay, Thomas called this my Garden of Eden. We were hoping that we would move in the spring or in the summer, so I started collecting the plants I wanted to grow. But unfortunately we moved in the winter, and so I brought all the plants into this building.
Lean-to.
Lean-to sort of. And over here I've got a cherry tree. It's obviously shredding its leaves because it's winter, but hopefully when we get that out on the land, it will grow. So we've got a number of fruit trees. We've got pear tree, apple tree, we've got an olive tree, which it's a bit of an experiment. It might live inside because of the temperature here. But we've got a number of fruit trees. That's what we're hoping to grow or add to the land, some more fruit.
We really like that property. We wanted that. It was in a beautiful, beautiful part of Wales, but it wasn't to be. But one of the problems we faced was that it had a septic tank which was leaking, and it was leaking onto somebody else's property. It was somebody else's property, wasn't it? Because he had the septic tank in the other field. And we got a price to repair that. That was £23,000 for the repair of the, well, it wasn't a repair, it was a renewal of the septic tank, because what they had said was that the regulators had said that that septic tank, what was in place, could not be used. And if we're going to buy the property, we'd have to replace it. And if we didn't replace it, we could get in trouble with the environmental agency. So obviously, they told us that the fines from the environmental agency can be quite substantial if you damage the land. So these are some of the issues that we've faced, and then you know, others might face them as well as they look. But I would never ever say to anybody, stop looking because of these challenges, because the best thing is to do is once you keep praying, you know that God is leading. He will lead you to the place that you need to be. And we truly believe that God has led us here. And we've prayed and we've asked the Lord that this land will bless His name, will lift up His name, will lift up, will be good for the church, be good for the community, and also be good for our neighbours. We want to make this place a blessing that will lift up the name of Jesus Christ. And we know that God will. And because that's what we want for Him, He'll want it for us also. So we know that in that we can trust the Lord to make a way. We just have to be following His leading, and that's what we've decided to do to start with this journey.
And just to add to that, you know, some things to be aware of when you're leaving the city, which, you know, we're not familiar with them. You know, like we bought this land, it didn't have a title. Apparently the laws for registering your property came in 2000, and some of the older people just didn't register their property, so you can encounter some difficulties there. Also, water source and the sewage and all of those things we're not familiar with in the cities, because they're provided by local authorities or other authorities. Here, your water is on the land, your sewage is on the land, and you have to maintain them, and you have to make sure they're registered and looked after. You know, these things, and there's a lot more that you really wouldn't be aware of, but you need to ask questions. Philip and I are quite happy to talk to anybody who needs some help or advice when buying their property in the country. But I hope this video encourages people, because we know the times in which we live, and we have to make some steps forward. And whether it be finance or whatever your situation, God is able, and that's what I would say. He
He helped us, and I know He will help you too.
So do you understand the spiritual implications of moving to the countryside?
Yes, I understand why they would have moved partially. For me personally, I don't think it had to be done so like quickly. Even though it did take it took a while for us to get to that point, but I think we could have waited a bit longer to actually make that move, because like even Aisha was saying, it doesn't just impact them, obviously it impacts everyone they leave behind as well. So yeah, I get it, but I still think it could have waited a bit longer.
And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up for ever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus.